And we are using AI to transcribe the meeting, just so that you guys know. Well, good morning. This is Ann Thompson. Welcome to the Dental Laboratory Program Rules Advisory Committee. Thank you all in advance for being here. Charles might join us, and if so, that's fine. But we wanted to go ahead and get started with some introductions. So I'm Ann Thompson. I'm the policy analyst for this program and responsible for getting the program started. With us is Director Bob Bothwell.
Good morning, everybody.
And we have board specialist Josh Page, who's running the board in the back.
Good morning.
And we have executive assistant Chrissy with us, who keeps us all on the rails. Good morning. We have licensing manager Tina Russell is on the line. That's fine. And we have several other staff members who are going to be paying attention. These staff members might have to be making forms or doing other functions, and getting to kind of know the program a little bit as we develop it is helpful. So before we get started, did everyone get their materials emailed to them in advance?
Yes, I did.
Yes. Shaking your head, that's great. For some reason, I can't see Christina across the top. Are you watching from her?
Yeah.
Okay.
She puts her hand up or something, so we go to the front.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we're going to start this morning with a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation on what we're here to do today. Kind of sets the tone and gives you an idea of what we're going to be looking for and what our roles are. So if we're okay, is everyone seeing the green slide that I have up? Okay, fantastic. So welcome to your Rules Advisory Committee. The reason we have RACs, not just because that they're legally required, it's to gather feedback from a community that could be either directly or indirectly impacted by these rules. We want to get as many stakeholders involved as possible so that when we make rules to put a program on the road or do any other legislative mandate, that these rules work for everyone. They work for Portland, they work for Baker City, they work for the big players, the small players, and the people that are going to have to follow these rules are going to give us feedback on what makes sense in this world. Because when we get a new program, we're learning about a whole new profession. We have 20 boards and programs, and it's always new. We're given a bill, we're told to do something. The rules are the how. The bill tells you what to do, the legislation, the rules say how to do it, right? So we want our rules advisory committees to represent as many kind of different stakeholders as possible. Usually we license individuals in fields of practice, cosmetologists, hearing aid fitters, athletic trainers. But this is our second business company. We had temporary staffing agencies a couple of years ago. It's only our second real business where we are having to oversee. As RAC members, you're going to provide us advice or recommendations. We are going to also get information on the fiscal impact of these rules. So as we're going through, think about the cost it's going to take to comply with these rules. Are you going to need software? Are you going to need staff? Is it going to take more administration? Is it going to take more hours? All of that is required when you file rules to tell legislators this is what it's going to cost people to do this. Right? So keep that in mind. And we're also going to have what's called a racial equity statement. A bill was passed a couple of years ago where the Oregon legislature wanted to take on systemic racism and social determinants of health based on the color that you're born into. And we have to put in a statement, and we'll go over this a little bit more. Is there anything in our rules that will help disproportionately represented communities or lower income communities or whatever get ahead? You know, is there anything here that will take on systemic determinants of health? And this is a public meeting, and it will be posted to YouTube. So I think you guys are fine, but we always advise keep it clean. It's going out on YouTube. Okay. So when you make rules, we're essentially making laws. They have the power of law. And what we do is we have internal processes where we take a bill and we ask the regulatory department or the licensing department, how is this going to work for you? Do you see any hurdles? Do you see any issues we need to solve? I come up with the rules. I kind of draft the rules. It's kind of like designing a car. The bill tells us design a car, and I go through the bill and I do the best I can do to build a car that matches what the bill wanted, right? But what these rules advisory committees do is you guys are the crash test dummies. You're the test drivers. You get in and you open, does the door work? Are the knobs where they're supposed to be? Are you missing a knob? So you guys are going to come in and kind of test drive them, tell us what works, what doesn't work. When we are completed with this process, I file proposed rules with the Oregon Secretary of State. And that notifies all the interested parties, all the players, that proposed rules are out there. The minimum period for comment is 28 days. You can have more. Complicated programs might have a 6-month period, but you can't have less. And during that period, usually people send emails, and they might take issue with one point or another point, or say that this would work better if you had X, or I think this is too much, what about Y? And I gather all that information up. And if we have a board, I present that information to the board. As this is a program, the information gathered during the comment period will be presented to our directors and our leadership. They statutorily have to review all the comments. They don't have to abide by them, because sometimes you have comments that are like, this licensing program shouldn't exist. There's no reason for this. Or everybody should get a free Dr. Pepper on Wednesdays. I mean, there's things we can't do, right? But we have to consider all of them. You can have small adjustments at the end. You can't have great change. An example would be if in order to qualify for a license, the proposed rules say you need a bachelor's degree in anything. And then at the last minute, say the director goes, I think a master's degree would be more appropriate. That's considered a massive change. When folks reviewed it, they were under the assumption we were going to go bachelor's degree. You can't make a change like that on the 1-yard line. Can't. If the director decided we needed a master's degree, we would have to go all the way back to the beginning of the rulemaking process, because it's about transparency and it's about involvement, right? You can do less, but you can't do more, right? So we're hoping we can only have a minor change at the end, and then rules will be filed permanently. Those permanent rules will have an effective date when they go into effect, because there's the world before them and the world after. Okay, is everyone okay? Anybody have any questions? Moving on. So we're going to do a quick civics lesson. We have 3 branches of government. The legislature makes the laws. We will use the word laws, the bill that created this, and statutes interchangeably. Okay, a bill gets a number. That when it is put into the big book of statutes, it gets another number. It goes from like a 4-digit number to a 6-digit number. It'd be 3 digits, dot 3 digits. Okay, and you have both in front of you today in your materials. I gave you the codified, the 6-digit text, because the bill is incredibly difficult to read. I wanted you to have both. The executive branch, which is us, carry out the laws. We are Switzerland. We have no opinion on legislation. We cannot prompt legislation. We are the hands of the legislature. And if there's any question about what the laws or rules mean, or what the legislator wanted, that's where the judicial branch gets involved. That's the lawyers. We have 4, I think, that work with us at the Department of Justice. Okay? And what's interesting is the legislature has their own attorneys. Sometimes they disagree. Rules. I mentioned this, but we'll have a slide on it. Rules, essentially, that we're working on today are laws that agencies create. The word is promulgated, because why use a simple word when you can have a complex one? Our power to write and enforce rules is completely dictated by the statutes that come from the legislature. They have to be our constant guideposts. Again, we're here today because the legislature put forth a bill that created this program. That is what we are guided by. We only have the powers given to us by the statutes. And I know this sounds good in theory, but once we start getting into the rules, sometimes RACs or members will say, well, it would make more sense if we did it this way. Or can't we do it this other way? Even though HLO, us, have overriding statutes that talk about license issuances, renewals. And by the way, we use the word authorization because here at HLO we have licenses, certificates, registrations, certifications. We have all of those kinds of things. So the word authorization covers all of those things. So you'll hear us use that word. We only have the power they give us. We have had legislation that created a program that didn't give the office power to issue a license. So the board, until that could be repaired, had to meet every week and go through applications because it said the board had to issue licenses. So I know sometimes it seems awkward, but again, these are our guideposts. Make sense to everybody? Okay, again, part of the way American government is structured is that we have no inherent powers. HLO has no powers, only the powers that are given to us by the legislature. We have overarching statutes that talk about we can set fees, we can collect late penalties. What happens if you write us a bad check? Because you think as an individual, you can get up in the morning and do all kinds of stuff. Whatever you want to do, unless you're prohibited by law because you've broken a law or you're convicted or whatever. But we can only do what they give us the powers to do. And sometimes we get bills that are imperfect. And we sometimes can work around that and sometimes we can't. Okay, so I know it's a little frustrating. Again, you'll hear us, just another vocabulary detour. ORS is Oregon Revised Statute. If you look on the slide, it says 676, 655. That is a bill that has been put into the big book of statutes. It's been given, it's like an address, right? The 676 is the neighborhood, the 655 is the house. That makes sense? OARs are Oregon Administrative Rules. They look like Social Security numbers. Those are what we're going to work on today. If you look at your slide, 331 is the chapter. Okay, that's us, HLO. Like DHS has like 441. 010 is the division, kind of the neighborhood, and 4 zeros would be the house. So that, and we fall in and out of acronyms, and we do this all the time when we talk fast. Stop us. If you get stuck, raise your hand, we'll bring you up to speed. Okay? When we are doing rules, we have to look at what the legislature wanted. And how do we know that? We look at the words in the statutes or bills, and we look, there are three things. There's exact terms, right? Those are easy. 18 years old, easy to prove, right? You can, driver's license, passport, birth certificate, easy to prove. Inexact terms. Now we're starting to get into the gray a little bit. Don't get scared. Inexact terms might be something like weapon. What's a weapon? That's when our rules would start to get a little beefier. And we would have to define that. We would say, for the purposes of these rules, weapon means, in some people's hands, a pencil. Where are we going? Okay. We would have to say, for the purposes of this rule, a weapon includes a pencil, right? It's because different people, if you say weapon, they're going to picture something different. So if there's any interpretation, we would have to get in and define that. The definitions of the first parts of the rules that I sent to you. Now, delegative terms are when the legislature knows something needs to be done, wants to do something, but they don't know what it is. And that's when they say, board, program, agency, y'all figure it out. And when they do that, your rules start to get much bigger because you have to define the world. You have to define the countries within the world. You have to define everything, okay? So if you have exact terms, your rules can be pretty slim because there's not much interpretation from whole county, 18 years old, not much. When you start getting into these other realms, your rules get beefier. And that's why when you see in the rules, the definitions are first. Some of those things were defined in your bill. Some of those things came from HLO's statutes to make sure that this program is aligned with our other work. Okay. Again, exact terms are super easy to prove, not a lot of interpretation. Inexact terms, I mean, think about it. What's an employee? Full-time, part-time? Is a volunteer employee? Right? Wildlife. If you say wildlife to someone in Alaska, they're going to have a very different picture in their mind than somebody from Florida. So if you get a word like wildlife in your bill or in your statutes, that's when your rules have to clearly define what that is. For the purposes of these rules, wildlife means, right? Because you want your licensees, your authorization holders, to know how to stay on the right side of the law. Okay? How do we figure that out if there's any questions? Well, the first thing we do is we look exactly at what the bill or statute says. What do these words say? Right? We use the construction guidelines and all that. I mean, a comma can mean everything when it comes to regulatory, right? SAFE found that out. They lost $50,000 over a comma, right? So it is important. If we need more than that, we go to the legislative history. Now everything is recorded, so we can watch the hearings. What was the tenor of the conversation when they were creating this bill? What was their goal? What was their intent? Now, sometimes in short sessions or legislators get busy, they kind of rush things through, and we don't have a lot of background. You know, we've had some legislative sessions where maybe part of the legislature left for a while and they came back in, and on Saturday, last day, they gabbled through 250 bills. Well, there's not a lot of discussion that goes on in something like that. So if we don't have anything there, then we have a dictionary. It's Merriam-Webster's. It's probably 40 pounds under a spotlight at DOJ. And they go into that dictionary definition of that word. I know this sounds like a lot of minutia, but that's where a lot of this work happens. Okay, we all okay? Has Charles joined us? Okay, thank you. So again, delegative terms, there's an example here in which the legislature says, we don't know what you might have to do, but you take care of it. Right, and here's an example of something that landed in health licensing office's lap. May impose a form of discipline. Okay, now that is lockstep with what other statutes say that we have the authority to do when it comes to discipline. We can't just randomly come up with something and say, okay, your discipline lawbreaker is that you have to wash the director's truck every week. We can't do that. We are given specific powers to sanction. We can suspend a license. We can revoke a license. We can issue a civil penalty. We can put people on probation. You know, there are only specific kinds of discipline we can do, but you can see in this text, the legislature in this law gave us the authority to issue any form of discipline that we have access to. Can't make something up, but we can use anything. Okay? So, even with delegative terms, we have to stay within the intent of the legislature, what they wanted. And I love this slide because when it comes to delegative terms, pretty much what the legislature says is, here are the bones of a dog. You can make a little dog, a big dog, a fluffy dog, a barky dog, whatever you want, but you cannot make a cat. I know it sounds silly, but we have had legislation that has come through where rules advisory committees, boards have been like, you know, we really need a cat. We really do. A cat would be the best animal for the job. But if the legislature hands you the bones of a dog, you cannot do that. Okay? Silly slide, but it does matter. We will constantly pull you back to our bill and the statutes that govern how HLO runs its programs, because that's how everything needs to fit. The two pieces that we will do at the end, and if you keep this in your mind as we go, as I mentioned earlier, we need, when we're done, to say, are these rules going to have a fiscal impact? Well, if somebody has to get an authorization under this program, yeah, they're going to have to pay the associated fees. But what other fees might they incur? Will they have additional staff? Will they need additional computer software or paperwork or additional assistance to fulfill their obligations? Those are all the things that we need to tell the legislature so that they can see how their idea affects people in real life. And House Bill 2993 is the racial equity statement. We need to tell the legislature when we file these things, we need to say, will these rules impact how all races are fairly, justly, and without bias, how are they treated? How will this rule affect racial equity? Again, will these rules affect the fair, just, and unbiased treatment of people of different races? Okay. Sometimes with these more administrative things, that can be a little tough, but if you could be cooking that in the back of your mind, that would be fantastic, because that would be the thing we will do at the end. Okay? Part of the racial equity statement, we need to identify what persons and racial groups are impacted by the rule. How might the rule impact racial groups? Are there going to be any unintended consequences that these rules will have on racial equity? Are there any positive consequences? We've had some rules that would increase access to care or might bring professionals into communities where they weren't previously. And that would be helpful because, I mean, you can have positive as well as negative impacts. And if there's not going to be an impact, we need to tell them why, right? And different bills lock in with this differently, and that's okay. Okay, so there's my entire cat slide. And that concludes Rules Advisory Committees 101. So right now, do anybody have any questions? Does anybody have any questions before we start looking at our proposed rules? Any hands? Wow, you guys are amazing. Okay, so I'm going to bring up the draft. I will share my screen. Okay. Draft is coming up. Okay, can everyone see the draft?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Susan. Susan, Carly, and Christina, are you there?
I'm here. I can see it.
I can see it.
And Christina, can you see it?
Yes, I can see it. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello. Fantastic. Okay, so I know we like to start at the beginning of things, but as everything you're seeing now in definitions occurs later on, what I would suggest, if it's comfortable for everybody, is let's go ahead and keep these definitions off to the side, right? Your materials, and keep an eye on those so that when we come upon them in the rules, if you're not sure what they mean, we can then come back to this, or we can review this at the end. Because we start at the beginning, you don't really have the context of how it's being used, and that can be a little bit confusing. Does that work for everybody? Fantastic.
Works for me.
Oh, you guys are great. And feel free to jump in. I mean, it's really hard over Zoom. I mean, it's easier when you're in the room and I can kind of look at everybody's faces and everything. Jump in, ask questions. This is all about you, right? 'Cause we need to know if these are going to work for everybody. Okay. I will have some questions in the text that hopefully we can spend some time on. So you see the first things, these are all the definitions that occur later on. This way, if an authorization, a lab gets a registration, they don't need to wonder what a certified dental laboratory technician is. This was defined in the bill. Okay? Is there anybody who wants to take time to go through the bill, or can we just proceed with rules? Are you guys okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Proceed. Perfect. That would be good, Grant. And, okay.
Susan, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good to proceed. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So we have our definitions, and then we have a set of fees. Now, fees are determined using a matrix, that we have up in Portland. We have so many boards and programs that they look at the number of people or entities that are going to have to be licensed, the risk, and what services we're going to have to provide. Some boards we have to create exams for, or training programs, or proctor exams, or anything like that. We look at how high a risk the profession is. We look at, if someone is in an area where they could cause harm, we look at how difficult the cases might be. Because if we get a complaint, we're statutorily required to to at least triage the complaint. And sometimes we get complaints that we need to send over to, say, the Board of Psychology or something like that. But if we have to take a complaint all the way to a hearing, what is that going to cost? So the fees have to be sufficient to cover the cost of a program. Now, when it's new, like yours is, we have to do some research and some speculation. Once the program is up and running and we've had some complaints or maybe no complaints, we will re-examine the fees. But right now, these are one of the reasons our program is getting off to a little bit of a slow start. These fees have to be run through the Department of Administrative Services. These are currently being reviewed, but these are application fee. This is when you apply. The application fee pays for the staff to go over your materials. Your authorization is essentially the generic word for registration license. One of the things we'll go over when we get to it, your bill is unusual in that once you get your initial authorization, every year you have to submit a list of information. And that list is identical to your initial authorization. So we're going to have staff in order to renew you instead of saying, yep, you're the same person, you're in the same place. We're going to have to go through paperwork. So there's going to be a fee associated with that and your renewal fee, which is good for 1 year. We don't do everything on the same date. Everybody who applies has like a rolling authorization date. You apply in April, then your authorization would be like April to April, right? Some boards, I don't know how they do it. Everybody turns in their stuff at the same time. And that just doesn't work for us because we have tens of thousands of licensees all applying at different times. It's not like the Board of Psychology where, they have a set base and they can do that. We have rolling licensure years. Another unusual thing about your bill is labs that are exempted from having to get a registration still have to annually submit information to HLO. We have to interact with them and we need to keep them in our database. So even though they're technically exempt, they still have to interact with us. So they're going to have to pay a filing fee with us. Authorization replacement, this is if you lose yours and you need another one printed. Late fee, if you allow your authorization to essentially become not current. which it does at, 12:01 a.m. on the last day of the month, 1 year of the date of issuance, you're gonna have to pay a late fee. You can be not current. These are HLO statutes. You can be not current for 3 years, and then you are expired. And then your lab, you cannot pay late fees and get caught up. You have to apply all over again and meet whatever criteria are in place at the time. Administrative fee is if you bounce a check to us. You all good? Okay, so now let's get into the meat and potatoes. Requirements, qualifications, applications, and renewal requirements. Okay? In order to get a registration with us, an authorization, a dental laboratory, and this is language from your bill, physically located in Oregon, or that prepares work product based on a work order from a dentist licensed in Oregon must hold an active authorization from us. That is bill language. A dental laboratory, we try to make things, if we can, statutorily line up with other boards and programs. If there's an association you have to be okay with, we try to make sure things fit as well as we can so that there's not a lot of extra tracking. So we have dental laboratories must retain records for at least 7 years. That lines up with the dental board, right? So that will stay locked with them as far as time periods. And a laboratory must make records available to the office within 7 business days. If we get a complaint and we need to look into something, this gives you a time frame to work with. There's nothing more frustrating. We have some boards and programs where we launch an investigation into an individual and they drag their feet. They don't open their mail or they don't respond. And this keeps that case just dragging and dragging and dragging. And it's expensive and it's time consuming. So we put this in here to show that a lab that's got a question has to respond to us promptly. Again, if we don't have this, we have no team. Okay. An authorized dental laboratory must provide to a prescribing dentist, again, this is your bill language, materials content, that we're going to reach our first question. Your bill says a materials content disclosure for each dental prosthetic appliance or other artificial material or device in a manner that is easily entered into a patient record. And one of you fine individuals tell me what that means. Because easily, we don't have any frame of reference for that. Can somebody help me with that?
Well, I will tell you from what we send out with our cases as it applies to the alloy that would be in a crown. There's a sticker that we provide to them that gives the metallurgy of that alloy. And so that's one example, but we don't have that for, let's say, like the ceramic, the glass, or the acrylic for a partial or a denture. So that's easily put in their file. Now, most of dentists now are keeping digital files, so I don't know if that muddies the water.
Oh, it certainly does. So it says that's easily entered into a patient record. Is there a way that we can flesh that out?
Sorry to cut in, but I read this as something that what we practice here is we put that information on the invoice that we send to the doctor. So obviously they could scan that into the patient's record, and it does have the majority of the material. So like, I think it was Carly was mentioning hers has an alloy, for example, but what if we're working on a PFM and it's a base metal, but then we're stacking porcelain on top of it? Our invoice would show that we were making an all-encompassing PFM and it would show the base metal contents, but it doesn't say anything about the brand of the porcelain or how the porcelain was made, so that it does get muddy in there.
Okay, just because you live in a world that we don't, can you please tell me what a PFM is?
It's porcelain fused to metal. So the base structure is metal and then it has porcelain stacked on top of it to make it look like a tooth.
Oh, and if you could be so kind, folks, before you speak, if you could say your last name for the record, because this will be on YouTube, but if we start getting a lively conversation and we, it's always nice to state your name so that we have a clear record of who said what. We're not being as formal as board meetings, but my director reminded me that's super helpful. So,
Sure, that came from Lampkin.
thank you very much. So that brings us back to in a manner that is easily entered into a patient record. How can we describe that based on what you guys just said? Is it artificial material that easily entered into a patient record, such as material content sticker or digital, like what would that look like if we were to give an example? Because again, we say that is easily entered into a patient record. If we get a complaint that says this wasn't easily entered, we need to have a benchmark. What is easily entered? So could this be a digital printout of a material's content? Could this be a digital copy that is attached to X and Y, a sticker? And I know you said it gets muddy. This is the mud, so we have to clean it up. How can we clarify this?
So would it be possible to just give be transparent about all the materials that we use in the lab and make that accessible to our doctors? And on like Christina said, on the invoice, you say this and this and this was used. And then the doctor could, if they want to know more, they could go to our library of materials. I mean, we're using lot numbers and everything for what we use, but I'm just from a lab that has hundreds of cases every day and hundreds of different materials used every day, and it's never the same, very rarely the same combination of materials used on any given case. It will be extremely cumbersome to get super detailed about what is used. And I know Carly said using they're called Identiloy stickers. I know some companies will provide those to us. And then we just, stick them on the our copy and send along stickers to the doctor to add to the patient file. But most companies don't provide that.
Our director, Bob, has a question.
It's Bob. So what does a sticker mean? When you say sticker, to me, is peel something off and slap it on. Is it information that's put into the invoice?
We
gotta boil that down
so
for us,
the
please.
stickers, they come from the company. One company would be Ivoclar, and that's a vendor that we use to we get our supply of a product called Emacs, and so they will send us a roll or sheets of stickers that say this product was manufactured using, Ivoclar Emacs, and that sticker goes along with that Emacs crown in the case box when we deliver it to the doctor. And the doctor can use it or not use it, but I mean, that's how we use the sticker. And then, but again, we don't have that's the easiest way to go about it, but we don't have that for the majority of our products that we use.
So to jump in and clarify that a little bit more, this is Lampkin. The base product, so the raw product that we would get from a manufacturer that we would then craft into a custom shape of a crown or whatever it is that we were making. A lot of those products do come with stickers in the packaging, but definitely not all of them. And some of those stickers they do show like the base material that they're using when creating that raw product. But the majority of materials that are going out the door, crowns, veneers, whatnot, they have more than just that base material. There's, stain added to them, there's glaze added to them, there's cement that's used. So if they're wanting to have some sort of record of every small material that is making this very custom product, it is going to be very lengthy on an invoice, and it's going to be multiple stickers if you can even get them. We've had a hard time finding stickers. We've had to create our own.
That's something to consider when we get to the fiscal impact, because a big part of this bill, as I understand it, was that so dentists know what they're putting in somebody's mouth. If they have an allergy, if there's a sensitivity, right? So am I hearing our members correctly that providing a full materials content is not something you do now, and if that's required, it's going to be difficult? Am I hearing that right?
Yes.
Yes. And this is Van Kinsbergen, talking. I really think that if the doctor wants, that information, we should have it available to them, absolutely. But to attach it to every single case will be far too cumbersome for the lab to do.
Okay. Well, and that kind of brings me to the bill's requirement. Remember we talked about the whole, if it's there, we have to do it? This is language straight out of your bill. And it's in a couple of places. A content disclosure for each dental prosthetic appliance or other artificial material device in a manner that is easily entered into the patient record. So that's not something that we can waive. That's something that has to be done. Keep in mind when we get to the fiscal impact, if this is going to be really, really cumbersome, if you're going to have to develop new processes to meet this requirement, we want to make sure to include that. But if I could bring us back we say that is easily entered into the patient, say digital, some sort of printed, because that's the problem. If you get hand print, handwriting involved, I don't know about you guys, but the more I type, the worse my handwriting gets. When you return this, other than the sticker, what else could be considered like they can pick it up and easily put it. Could this be like printout or some product? I'm just trying to come up with some record.
Can you hear me? It's
We talked
Tina.
about definite. Well, what if I wanted to
Ann?
send over? Yes, Tina. Tina, I can't hear you.
She's muted if she's
I
talking.
think you're muted.
Internet problems.
Here?
Yeah,
You guys are definitely cutting in and out.
here, nothing. It says unstable.
Oh,
So,
no.
just giving you a heads up.
Thank you very much, Tina. Apparently, today is the day to have internet issues. So have you guys been missing a lot of what we're saying?
Just over the last 30 seconds or so, it's been cutting in and out.
I do appreciate everyone is keeping their video off, which is very helpful. That sucks up bandwidth. Okay, well, let's soldier on. If we start cutting out, if one of you could like put your hand up or give us some sort of alert, I really appreciate it.
This is Christina again. Can you clarify for us? I know that this is super vague, but I think this might help us when it's talking about easily entering this into a patient record. Obviously, we all use different CRM programs. We invoice through many different ways. QuickBooks has been really good for us to be able to have items that we have a generic description that has a lot of this material type already on there. We made that switch a while ago to include it. It was a cumbersome process in the beginning, but I know a lot of other people aren't using a system like QuickBooks. However, is there gray area in here on a percentage of the material contents, or does it have to be 100% of what this material going out the door is? Or is it kind of like the base of it? The base is zirconia from, this manufacturer, or the base is, a gold crown.
No, we don't get down into the weeds on that. We do have, in the statute, we have a materials content disclosure. Means a notice provided to a dentist by a dental laboratory that includes the name, physical address, and registration number of the dental laboratory, the city, state, and country of origin where the technological work under the work order was performed, in whole or in part. The city, state, and country of the dental laboratory or dental laboratories that manufacture or repair, directly or indirectly, the dental prosthetic appliances or other artificial materials and devices ordered under the work order, and so that the dentist may include the information in the patient's record, the manufacturer and brand name, or the United States Food and Drug Administration registration number of all patient contact materials used in a dental prosthetic appliance or other artificial material or device that is inserted into the human oral cavity or that comes in contact with the human oral cavity's adjacent structures and tissues of the patient. So according to the statute, the bill, everything that comes in contact with the patient's tissues has to be identified. And it doesn't say percentages.
This is Bob. It did say brand names, so you were throwing out some material name. So I think that, does this help a little bit more? Because they're not wanting to the nth degree. Just the FDA name and of what is in contact with tissue.
Does that help?
Kind of.
It's, if we have to give the FDA name, that's pretty much specific to
Yeah.
that brand, so.
It doesn't say percentage.
Okay.
So we have the what. We're still stuck on the how. How can you get this information to the dentist so that it can easily be entered? Okay, I'm just spitballing here, such as it would be a materials sticker from the manufacturer, or
Well, I think we would probably just start printing very long invoices with, like zirconia glazed with Mio. I mean, it would, the amount of stickers we would be adding to things would be a little ridiculous.
Yeah,
such as a content printout. What would you call that? A materials printout, or how would you describe that so that people would know exactly what you were talking about? Not so much how, but what would that be? A materials list in printed form or something like that?
Yeah, just material content on our invoices. So, and that would be easily scannable into their record.
Is scannable. Okay. Anything else, or does that kind of get us there?
so I can see, this is Van Kinsbergen, I can see, instead of the long list on the invoice, maybe creating QR codes for each of our products that has the details of the materials that we used. And that QR code could then be automatically generated on an invoice, and the doctor could scan for more information and, you know, move it over to the patient record.
Now, would everybody be able to use the same QR code if you had a small lab out in who knows where? Because again, you have big companies that have all kinds of stuff, and then you have smaller places.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a universal QR code. I'm just sort of spitballing, how do we make this easily entered into the patient record for the lab? And, you know, there would be some heavy lifting at the front end to do this, but every lab uses a different combination of materials. So that, you know, whether it's a QR code, I think that's probably how we would go, but whether it's a QR code or just a list, that maybe they capture with a screenshot or a photo and put that in the patient record.
You could have, this is Carly, look, you could have on your website material content list of all the different things that you were using. That would,
exactly.
yeah, accessible to them.
But is that easily entered into their record? I think that's, when you say how easily is this, and if the dentist's office says, this isn't easy, we have to take a staff member, and then they can get on the website, and they can go look it up. Could that meet the definition of easily entered into a patient's record?
Downloadable form, I would think so.
I'm sure. The material
I
content.
feel like that's asking for an extra step. If I were receiving a case and I was having to enter it into the computer, I don't know that I would want to spend the time to go to another source to download something for each individual case.
Well, and it says a materials content disclosure that is easily entered into the patient's record. So, I mean, again, this is where we get into words, right? It almost sounds like something that is provided to the dental office that they can just put it in the patient's record. It's not like they have to go searching. Tina?
So what we're really, this is Van Kinsbergen, what we're really talking about is like the ingredients list on, you know, every packaged food that we buy.
That's correct.
And so what the doctor does with that, like when we provide lot numbers to the doctors, to be honest with you, don't know what they do with that. Once we provide that information to them, I don't know how they enter that into the patient record, or, you know, and, you know, that's kind of their business. We provide it to them and they do what they will with it. And I think maybe what we should, we can print out a sheet. If it's an Emacs crown, they get the Emacs sheet. Here's the ingredients of the Emacs. And they can file that, scan it, whatever they want to do with it. You know, I don't know how we can make it any easier than that for the doctor.
Okay. Well, and that's valid. So if we just include language that says such as a material content on an invoice that is scannable into the patient's record, do we need the scannable QR code, or can we just leave it at that and see if anybody comes up with anything better? You know, because again, see, what's killing us is the word easily. When we talk about wildlife, you know, what's easy for you may not be easy for me, but that word is there. So if we offer this suggestion, such as a materials content on an invoice that's scannable into a patient record, does that kind of get us a place to start, and then see when we go out for public comment if anybody else has any other ideas? Does that work for everybody?
I think that's broad enough. Yeah.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, I agree.
It's always hard. I mean, to your credit, it's always hard to think about what's easy for someone else, right? It's asking you to step into somebody else's shoes. That's really, really hard, which is why I flagged that, because I'm like, that's weird. Okay, so we can, and I think we're gonna come across that later on. And if you want, if the same situation works, we can just cut and paste this description. Okay? So one of the other things you have to have, thank you very much for us getting over our first hurdle, the point of origin and manufacturer for each dental prosthetic appliance or other material or device. That's something you have to include. You also, if the dental appliance or other artificial material was partially or entirely manufactured by one or more third parties, the point of origin has to identify these things. And yes, there's probably somebody in the group that's going to notice we start with little letters and we go to big ones. It looks weird, but that's the Secretary of State style. Okay. If you're on the third party issue, you need to include the portion of the prosthetic or appliance that was manufactured, the city, state, and country of that, like almost subcontractor. And that's straight out of the bill. Make sense?
I do have a question on that, the city, state, country of origin for third party. So in some scenarios, we are unable to make 100% of the product here. So we might just not have the milling machine for it. So if we have a piece of the final product milled off-site, we have to know the warehouse, city, state, and we have to list that on the invoice. What's your take on that?
Well, the exact language is if an appliance or artificial material or device ordered was partially or entirely manufactured by a third party. The point of origin disclosure must identify the portion and the city, state, and country of each third party. So if that's another lab, it would have to be, I'm guessing, where the lab is. Because, I mean, companies can be incorporated in Delaware, but be located in Texas, right? Again, I mean, this might be something that has to suss out. Some things we don't know until we have a case and we investigate it. But the way I interpret this is, where was it made? Where was the lab made? You know, where is the lab located? Make sense?
I do feel like this is going to be a trouble spot for those on this call that work with implants.
Yeah.
Not all implants can be milled in-house. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, just bear with me here. ASC abutments milled offsite at True Abutment, say. So we would have to put on the invoice the warehouse or the plant of True Abutment where this where it got milled. It feels a little sticky there. How do we know?
Christina, this is Bob.
Hi,
So when you receive something from a third party, do they not include where it came from?
Yeah, who they are, where they're located.
Well, in this scenario, we would order it on an online portal, but I don't know how many facilities they have across the nation that they would be milling from. It's possible, I guess. I think that that would be a bit more work for someone to pay attention to the origin of it when they're opening up the package.
So in this is Ben Finsberg, in this situation, when we're talking about true abutment or any implant work, that's a class 2 medical device and it's registered with the FDA, and they have to give us that information. And I think our due diligence, and correct me if I'm wrong, the people on the rules committee here, that we should be able to take their word for it as a, being registered with the FDA, that they're giving us the correct information, and that should be good enough for what this bill is requiring, correct?
This is Bob. Can you say that again? Sorry.
So in the situation that Christina is referring to, where a lot of times we're outsourcing the manufacture of a class 2 medical device, which they have to be registered with the FDA to manufacture those and to sell them to us. So when they send us the abutment, there's the lot number, there's the address, manufactured in what country and everything like that. That should be good enough for this purpose, correct?
Sounds like it might be.
You don't know.
Yeah, well, we don't know until
Because we
we run up against it ourselves.
What these things usually suss out, if I'm honest, is we get a case. You know, right now we're speculating, and you're saying it should be good enough for the purposes of. Sometimes later on down the road, we get a complaint. Somebody claims that something was put in their mouth and it caused a huge reaction, and the dentist said, well, if I had known that this had nickel in it, this person had an allergy, I would have never put that in there. So then we would investigate and we would say, okay, did you meet your requirements to include everything in there? And that's when we start learning how this really works. Does that make sense, Bob?
Yeah.
Bob has a compliance background, so he's kind of our expert on how does this play out. And sometimes that's really what it comes down to, is did you meet the requirements to keep this from happening? And then later on, maybe we find out that that's not enough. But that's what you guys are here to do, to tell us. You know, would this make sense in the world, doing that? You know, getting that information from a third party.
Well, I suppose this is Van Kinsbergen. I suppose, you know, we have a requirement to audit our vendors, and maybe at that point we ask where the manufacturing takes place if it's not included on the packaging.
Yeah.
And that might be something for the fiscal impact if you're going to have to add a step to your process.
Yeah. And this is Bob again, and it just might be training those third-party vendors that when they send something to Oregon, and I don't know if Oregon's a stick in the mud or what, but, you know, that they provide the information that you need to be in compliance.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we okay with that?
Yep.
Yep.
So one of the requirements is that a dental laboratory shall maintain a qualified employee, and qualified employee is defined in the bill as well as qualified employee. And hopefully this is not you, because you have responsible people and then you have qualified people. I think we have
It's
that.
described on 13 if you keep going.
Okay, perfect. And we're going to assign each dental laboratory a number, and authorized dental laboratories must include this number on all invoices and other correspondence. And again,
So
that's
to clarify on that too, if we're working with somebody who is a third party, like they're going to mill these abutments and they're not in the state of Oregon, are we saying that they like it's just our number that's assigned to our dental lab in Oregon, or do we have to include some number for them even though they're not in Oregon?
these are, as I understand it, these are dental labs that have a number from us.
Okay.
Okay, and that anything you send out, invoices, other correspondence. I've actually had labs already saying, "Hey, we're getting ready to order more forms, and we want to get our paperwork in quick so that we can get this number on our form." It's anybody who has an authorization number from HLO. That's okay. So we are okay. We can move on.
Can I ask, This is Van Kinsbergen. Must include this number on all invoices and other correspondence. What does that mean?
That's a terrific question because that's straight out of your bill. And what might that look like? And that might be something that we can flesh out here. What other communications and just kind of open your mind, what other communications would a lab make with dentists, other labs, other entities or individuals that might need this number? Like, because again, the bill says all invoices and other correspondence. But until we talk to experts such as yourself, we don't know what is correspondence. Obviously invoices, we all kind of know what those are. But what might you send out?
I imagine this would also relate to statements, but I mean, if people are communicating via email or newsletters or social media, I mean, it starts to get a little crazy to put it on everything.
Yeah.
This is Bob, if I may, and we can take emails, for example. You can put it right in your signature box. It doesn't specify where it has to be. It just has to be there.
Yeah, correspondence. So like one of the things we have here as part of the Oregon Health Authority, they tell us what we need to have in our signature block. And it is our name, our division, our clickable links to any other surveys or things that people might need. And that's not that difficult to do. As far as, I mean, social media is its own ecosystem. I don't know how much dental labs conduct business or anything via that means. Usually it's official correspondence in some way. Email, stationery, letterhead, templates, anything like that in an official capacity. But that would be my assumption. Do labs have other things that you would consider in the profession of correspondence?
I would think just marketing and advertising materials, which would be, I guess, easy to add it to the bottom with the other certifications that are listed.
And that's Carly?
That is Carly. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, that shouldn't be, I mean, yes, it is a step, but would you consider that an onerous step or a burdensome step? Just to add that to templates or email signature blocks?
Well, I guess that depends on this is Carly again, how much we already have printed and how much we're going to have to be reprinted as far as, our advertising and marketing stuff.
Perfect. And when we get to the fiscal impact, Carly, let's be sure and include that because that's a very real cost. Because if you are required to do something now that you didn't have to do before, and you need to reorder templates, you need to reorder stationery or invoices, yes, that is a cost. And think about, it's always good to give a dollar amount and say, our normal order is $5,000 and we'll have to reorder it, so that's going to cost us X. Having real numbers is meaningful, and that's a real expense.
This is Christina. I like what you're saying. Going back to how it's written on here, is there a way that we could write official correspondence and give an example so it's easier to understand in the future?
I'm groaning because changing correspondence to official correspondence when all the bill said was correspondence.
Is there a way you could just list the examples that we were talking about?
We can certainly try. I mean, I'm not an attorney, and one of the things we do is we're here to get feedback. If you want something, if I think it's possible, there's nothing wrong with including it and asking the people above my pay grade is because it's all about risk, right? Are we straying outside the fence? Are we close to the fence, but we're okay? So if you think that it would be helpful for the implementation of this bill to include an example of what correspondence is, I say let's go for it. So other correspondence, including what, emails? Or, we could say official or company business emails.
Yeah, same with what you were saying about letterhead, statements, marketing.
Marketing materials.
Yeah.
How about marketing and advertising materials?
Yes.
Love it.
In Oregon, whenever you see one of these ads for a contractor, they're like CCV number, or blah, blah, blah. I mean, they have to actually put it in their radio ads. Okay, anything else? Marketing and advertising materials? Does that kind of give us a flavor?
I think that at least gives people guidance. Absolutely. It makes it way more clear.
I love it, and I'm going to say this because I don't want to miss anything. Okay. You guys are doing great. I really, really appreciate it. Okay. So we get into application requirements. Okay. This is for the initial authorization. Okay. When you apply, our first number here, we talked about OAR, that's Oregon Administrative Rule, remember, Chapter 331, Division 30. And what that covers, because remember, we have to bootstrap everything into our authority. That covers HLO rules regarding what counts as an identification. That's the level of detail that we have to get into. We have rules about how we issue an authorization, identification, requirements for issuance of a duplicate if you lose yours, right? So we're saying when you get an authorization from us, you're now under that umbrella. If you want an authorization and you're applying, you have to, A, submit a completed application form as prescribed by the office. That means we will have a form available on our website. You have to use that form. That form will include, and these requirements come from your bill, the name, mailing address, phone number, and email of the dental laboratory. I tried to change it to email, was told no, it says electronic, use it. Physical address of the laboratory, if different from the mailing address, and the name, mailing address, phone number, and electronic mail address of the responsible person, that's described in your bill and in your definition, or the name and license number of the dentist who supervises the dental laboratory. Make sense?
We have a problem there.
Oh, bring it.
We don't have a dentist supervising this dental lab. It's not like that at all. Our lab is not an in-office dental lab, and so our rules are different than what may happen inside a dental office.
And that's why the or is in there. It says the name, address, phone number, and email address of the responsible person. Okay, that's a lab that's run by the responsible person.
Okay, good.
Or the name and license number of the dentist that supervises it. You can have either. A lab run by a responsible person, as defined in your bill, or a dentist, but not both. That gives you some flexibility. Feeling better?
Yeah.
If you also have to submit, we have little a, completed application that has to include these things. The next thing is an attestation, which we'll have on the form. And an attestation is a legally binding that this is true. An attestation by the responsible person that runs the lab or the dentist that supervises the dental lab, that the dental lab meets the infectious disease control requirements of OSHA and the CDC. Okay, so the person in charge or the dentist in charge will have to attest on the application that these requirements are met, and you have to submit an attestation by the responsible person or the dentist supervising the lab that the lab will provide to a prescribing dentist who submits a work order to the lab these things. The material content disclosure, that again we mentioned up top, right? Okay. Same language. Okay. Record. And the point of origin of the manufacturer of each prosthetic appliance that's ordered under the work order. If the dental this brings us back to that third party issue. If the dental prosthetic appliance or other material or device ordered was partially or entirely manufactured by a third party, point of origin disclosure described in subsection A, that's this. Okay. It must identify the portion and the city, state, and country of each third party. So it's kind of similar to what we had up top. Okay. And you have to submit documentation. Now this is where we're going to need your help. In addition to those things, you have to submit documentation, keep that word in mind, that the applicant, whoever is filling out this application for an HLO authorization, or an employee of the applicant, because we do have temporary staffing agencies, and the person who runs the agency may not be the person filling out the application. It could be a compliance officer, HR, one of those. But you're going to have to provide documentation that the applicant or somebody who works in the lab has, in the 12 months before they apply, completed at least 12 hours of CE in dental lab technology approved or accepted by the National Board of Certification in Dental Laboratory Technology. This is if they go bust, right? If they go bust or a successor organization, that allows us, we have had incidents where an organization is mentioned specifically in statute and they go out of business and then we're dead in the water, right? So this allows continuity, and by the health licensing office. Okay, so this first one, what kind of documentation might HLO receive that shows that either the applicant or the employee has this, and that they, number one, they work at least 30 hours a week, and number two, that during this time, very specific time period, they have this very specific continuing education in dental lab tech, and at least 12 hours of it. What on earth could we expect to receive to prove all of these things?
Well, this is Carly Looks. For CDTs, this will be easy. We'll just give you our CDT number, and our current valid CDT number, and that requires us to have that continuing education. For anyone who's not, I don't know how they would do it. Maybe submit all of the information they have on whatever continuing education courses they took.
Okay, so what you're saying is if somebody is CDT certified, but they would meet this requirement. Because I mean, usually when we say documentation, it's not this, here, I'm going to give you this and you'll know that, right? Is there a printout or something from the CDT that says what they have in order to keep that certification? Because think about, we have staff in the back that are going like crazy. We have dozens of professions, and some, the statutes are very easy. It says you have to have current certification in X. So they show a card that says it's current and they're good to go. This says documentation that they have this 12 hours in dental laboratory technique, approved or accepted. So what if it came from a different place? You see, you start pulling this apart.
So if I can, this is Van Kinsbergen, if I can just kind of chime in here on this. Somebody whoever wrote this understands what CDTs, certified dental technicians, have to do. They need to have 12 hours of continuing education every year in order to maintain their certification. And they get a little sticker that says that they can add to their certificate saying, yep, you're good until the next year. And so if they have a valid, if they're a valid CDT, this is exactly what this means. So they could provide their certificate.
So they
Okay,
would provide us, this is Bob, so they would provide us a certificate? Is that what I'm understanding?
A
Yeah,
copy-
or a copy of our card that we're given would probably be
would
easy.
would that have its valid dates on it?
Mine does. It has an
Yes.
expiration date.
How long is it good for, if I may ask?
A year. Every year you have to complete the 12 hours of required training to maintain it and pay their fee.
And it's the National Board for Certification in Dental Laboratory Technology. That's who gives us our certification. So it would be approved and accepted by them.
Okay, so if they provided us a copy of current, I worry about changing the language. If they provide us a current National Board for Certification in Dental Laboratory Technology certification, that means that they have this 12 hours, not just the right amount, but it's in the right thing, they're okay. That would be fine.
Yes.
Yep, and if
Right.
somebody by chance is not certified, they can still, they have access to, education, like this continuing education through the National Board for Dental Laboratory Technology. They can take those courses, pass the quizzes, and get, have a record of taking that training.
Okay, and that so if they don't have the certification, they could provide and again, documentation.
Yeah,
Somebody just looks at it and they see what they need, that they have the 12 hours, it's in the right thing, and because it was by the Board of Certification, then it's obviously accepted by them if it's by them, right? So that would be an option.
yes.
Okay. That's good.
This is Bob. Is that the only option for training or certification? Not certification, but the
The
CE?
CEs, is there anything else that's been approved or accepted by this organization that might come
Oh, yeah.
from someone else?
Yeah, a lot of our vendors, Epiclar, Argon, they all offer CE with credits that the NBC will accept.
Do they put on there that that it's accepted by the NBC?
Yes.
That I don't know that.
Yes, if it is, if they're offering CE, then they have gone through the process with the certification board to approve the content and make sure that it's worthy of continuing education credits.
Okay. So that is wonderful. That brings us to the earlier part of that component. What kind of documentation is HLO going to get that this employee that either has current certification or has the 12 hours approved by works at least 30 hours a week? What are we going to get that proves that? What kind of documentation? And remember, everything that we get, we have to keep forever. We have to scan it and keep it forever. So along with proof that they have this CE and this right stuff certified by the right place, how are we gonna prove that they work 30 hours a week? At least 30 hours a week.
I guess signing an attestation that you do would probably be the easiest way. I don't know how you could prove other than calling everybody's HR department and trying to figure it.
No, we cannot do that. Just so you know,
Yeah.
we are not getting on the phone and doing research. That is not going to happen. When somebody applies, they have to hand us something that proves this requirement.
Yeah, this is Susan. They can get this from their employer.
Tina has her hand up.
Just a memo or a letter of employment. Yeah,
Okay.
it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, our licensing manager, Tina, has her hands up.
This is Tina. Can they self-attest, Anne? that they work 30 hours?
No, it says documentation that the applicant or the employee works at least 30 hours a week and then has this CE. So it has to be documentation. It's not an attestation. So our members indicated that you have an HR department that could issue a letter that would qualify.
Yeah.
So we would get a letter from HR or another official source that this individual that matches the documentation on the CE works at least 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound so bad. But there's an or. There's an or. They can either be that person or that the applicant or an employee who works at least 30 hours a week, which you said can be proven, is a certified dental lab technician in good standing. Is that another, does that relate back up to the other one where they have NBC certification?
Yeah, this is Van Kinsbergen. That is exactly what we've been talking about. And so the capital letter A section would be about the person who is not a certified dental technician, but has taken the courses that are approved by
Gotcha.
the NBC.
That makes more sense. Or they're certified. So if they're certified, they got everything they need, right?
Yep.
Perfect.
This is Bob. I'm gonna play devil's advocate real quick. How would NBC know how many hours somebody's working?
They would not. That was a separate thing.
No, it's okay. There's a couple of requirements. And see, this, we get down into the weeds and sometimes folks get lost. You have to have a person who's either certified or has the right CE. And they work at least 30 hours a week. So the 30 hours a week would come from the HR space, and the certification would come from the NBC. You're either certified or you have taken courses approved by them, correct?
Yeah.
And when people are applying, again, this bill allows different pathways, we call them. A third pathway is that the applicant or an employee of the applicant who works 30 hours a week, provable by HR, is a dentist. And that would be easily proven with a dental license number. Okay? So those are your three pathways: certified, not certified, but taking classes, appropriate classes, or you're a dentist. Then you have to submit any additional information. And we have this catch-all category. Sometimes folks, well, not sometimes, frequently, applications come in incomplete. Something is missing an expiration date on it, or it's missing something. And this little e allows our licensing specialists to say, what you sent us doesn't get us there. Do you have something that will get you there, right? So it's our little catch-all category, and you have to pay all the fees. Okay. One of the things that we added was changes in the responsible person, and this is you're either a dentist or you're a statutorily defined responsible person. If this person changes, you need to submit a new application and all fees to the office within 30 days. And that allows us to make sure that the lab is being run by an appropriate person. And again, we give the time limit because folks get busy. Tina can certainly attest to this. Folks get busy. Oh, we got a new person and we forgot it was a thing. This reminds folks you have got to stay current with us. Okay. We also included number 4. This was something that we learned with the temporary staffing agencies. People would turn in applications, and a lot of these companies that send healthcare workers to Oregon, would start an application, and then they would just decide not to come here. We can't just leave paperwork sitting on a licensing specialist desk in perpetuity. They would drown back there. It would become an avalanche hazard. So we have this on here, say if you're not finished with this application within 2 years of submission, we're just going to close it and shred it. Again, it just gives us a backstop to keep our licensing staff safe from avalanches. Okay? Now, if we don't have any questions, what's interesting is, according to your bill, the world changes on January 1, 2030. Now, putting rules that occur in the future is a little bit of a risk, but the way we live here at HLO is we want our stakeholders to know that this is going to change. And if we put it in the rules now, they have ample notice that things will change as of this date, and they can see exactly how they're going to change. So this is customer service here. Beginning January 1, again, nothing will change when it comes to applications. Our statutes are the same when it comes to identification and application processes and all. But what will change is that a dental laboratory applying you'll still need the name, the mailing address, and all that. And that B, submit an attestation by the responsible person supervising the dental lab that they meet the infectious control, and that the dental lab will provide, we have that, here we can change this. See this popped up again? Okay. Dental prosthetic, obviously you have to continue to have the materials, the point of origin, but you have to submit documentation that the dental laboratory employs a certified dental laboratory technician who is in good standing with the NBCD or its successor organization and who works 30 hours a week. So instead of having the person that has the 12 hours, now you have to have a certified dental laboratory technician. So when I say, what does this look like? It sounds to me, from what we learned up top, is that they're going to have a certificate. Is that correct? Or an ID card that has that they're in good standing?
They would have to have the certificate. Yes, this is Christina.
Okay. Perfect. Well, see, we learned. And, or the lab is operated by a dentist who works at least 30 hours a week. And again, that would be up to the dentist to show that they work that much. The requirement, and we'll get to the exemption later on, the requirement in D does not apply. Now, this is something that you guys maybe can help us with. This is another one of what does this look like? So the requirement in D that you have to have a certified technician that works their 30 hours a week or is operated by a dentist who works at least 30 hours a week does not apply to a dental laboratory that can prove to the office that it has been continuously owned and operated by the same person since January 1, 2013. That's from the bill. What will this look like? What would somebody provide? What would a lab provide to HLO to show that they don't have to follow this requirement because they've been continuously owned and operated by the same person since 2013? Why? Because when we get into 2030, that's what? That's a long time. You're going to have to prove continuous owners and operators. What might we get to prove this? Can you think of it? Anything?
There's got to be something in a business license, but for it to be continuous, would they have to pull a business license for every year since 2013?
I have no idea. That's why I was hoping our members could help us. That's a long time, from 2013, and this goes into effect in 2030.
Maybe just an example, this is Van Kinsberg, and maybe just an example of an employment record that happens to be that long.
And where would that employment record come from?
HR.
Okay. Okay. I mean, again, these are the questions, like, we looked at that, like, what on earth would somebody give us? We do not want 20 years of tax records. No, we don't, because we have to keep those. So, okay, so maybe an employment record. Again, any additional information that we need, pay your fees.
Hey, Ann, I have a question.
Yes.
So when you guys say HR records, what if this is a company that doesn't have HR, it's a small dental, would it be okay for the owner to submit a letter stating that they have been in practice for that long?
Can do.
I don't think that's going to be enough. It has to be documentation that has been continuously owned and operated by the same person since January 1, 2013.
So we might need to come up with some things that they can give.
Yeah. What about, I'm assuming, that they would need a business license to operate a business. Wouldn't the state of Oregon have records?
We've done a little bit of searching. The Secretary of State, if you register your business with them, it's a repository, but there is no quality control there. There are people that register a business with a responsible person, turn right around and change it, turn right around and switch something out. The Secretary of State does not monitor, edit, or offer any kind of quality control on their registries. It's just a dead database. So companies come and go. There's no, it's just a bare minimum. And it's kind of like consulting, like crowdsourcing medication on Facebook or something. It's not like if you go there that they're going to stand by the data that they're providing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think the biggest hurdle is continuously operating the business for that long.
Exactly. Tina?
On Secretary of State, there is one thing. You do have to renew your business every single year. And in there, it will show the renewals. If they happen on time, if they were continuous, it will show that.
Okay. Well, that's a nugget of gold right there. Yeah, I've done some searching and it was not great, but well, that gives us something. And here's the other thing, folks. There's going to be a lot of time, a lot of water under the bridge between now and 2030. And it is not unusual that once a program like this gets started and the difficulties or hurdles appear, that somebody could go and get this amended by the legislature and say, this is not needed, or here's a way to change it. So, but that gives us something. I would hate to let go of the rules and have no idea what this might look like in the future. So that's very helpful. The rest of it is the same as up top. You have to pay your fees, changes to the responsible person, you got to let us know. And if you start an application and don't finish it in 2 years, it's going in the shredder. Okay. We all doing all right?
Yep.
So this is what happens, we go through the steps, right? First, you apply. We talk about what that looks like. Now, this is when we give you your authorization. When we give you one, you're going to get a number, right? It is valid for 1 year and becomes not current. I know that's awkward language, but that's our statutory awkward language. Not current on the last day of the month, 1 year from the date on which the authorization becomes not current. So it's like the exactly, it's if you get it on April 1st, give it a year, last day of the month, 1201, you go inactive. If you are a lab is in inactive status, that means they're not current. They cannot operate in Oregon or fulfill orders originating in Oregon. If an authorization has been inactive for more than 3 years, is expired. Right, that is our statutory language and cannot be renewed. Once it is expired, you have to apply for a whole new authorization and meet whatever the requirements are at the time. Maybe not so important with dental labs, but when you're talking about individuals in fields of practice, which is the majority of our business, that's very important. Some folks are like, well, I don't want to renew my license because I'm not really working, and they'll just let it go. And if it expires and the qualifications for getting a new license have changed dramatically, well, now you have to meet the new requirements. Okay? Your authorization has to be kept on file, and if HLO or someone else asks you for it, you have to be able to provide it. Now, any questions on that? That's just the furniture involved with what an authorization kind of is.
This is Van Kinsbergen. Do you have any sense of how long this process is going to take from start to finish?
Are you talking about the issuance of an authorization?
Yes. Like once we start the process, when do we get our number?
Well, that's Tina can speak to that more specifically, but generally, again, we don't know until we get going how long these packets are going to take to get through. We do pride ourselves on turning things over quickly. Tina, if you can speak in more specific broad terms.
Yeah, this is Tina. It's going to depend on how many we get and how fast, like Ann said, that we could process them. But we do try to get our stuff done in a minimum of a few days to where you are issued a number that can be looked up on our website and prior to the license actually being printed. So you would be able to go in and whenever you wanted to see if it had been processed and that you were issued a license number.
And again, we have qualification specialists who are specialists for a reason. We'll have a specific person that's assigned to this program, and they specialize in looking at these documents. It's not like you're sort of the jack of all trades, master of none. Tina's team back there are assigned to very specific programs, and they are very familiar with those programs. They know what the paperwork is supposed to look like. Some of the slowdowns that we get are forms that are filled out incorrectly or information that's not complete. That's when when the anchor goes out of the boat, because now we're in an email game. We're emailing, we don't have this, oh, that person's on vacation, oh, I thought I sent that, that's when things really slow down. But if applications are complete, and if you notice, that's where we don't just say an application. Because if we don't say complete application, that could be somebody puts their name on the top of it and goes, oh, here you go. And it can get crazy. Folks sending in the wrong ID, they photograph the wrong ID for the wrong thing. So if people are careful and diligent and provide everything up front, the turnaround time is pretty impressive most of the time. Again, if you have holidays, things slow down. If you have people out sick, things can slow down. That's when you apply the reasonable person standard. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Renewals. Now, what's really interesting about the way your bill is written, remember we talked about the vagaries and the differences? You already have an authorization. You're a lab, you've got one, you've got a number. What's interesting to us about the way this bill is written is you can fill out a renewal application form, right? But you have to submit all the original information to get an authorization. So that's why we have us bootstrapped in here to 765,005. When you renew, some of our, well, almost all of our requirements are like once you've got an authorization from us, once you have a license, you get a renewal thing. You just attest that you haven't been arrested, that you haven't been convicted, that everything is the same, and you're good to go. And you can do that online, right? The way your bill is written, you still have to send us documentation that you have a certain kind of employee that works a certain number of hours, right? You still have to send that to us. So even though you're renewing, the documentation process is much greater than we typically see in a renewal space. Okay, so you still have to provide us that the name, address, phone number, email of the dental laboratory, the physical address of the dental laboratory, if different, the responsible person or the dentist, you still have to submit. You know, well, we can have an attestation by the responsible person that the laboratory meets the OSHA, the CDC requirements, and an attestation that, you know, that they're gonna have the material content, and all of that is required for a renewal. And that's why, if you saw earlier, we had a renewal review fee, because it's not like we're getting a little slip in via, you know, our online system that says, yep, I'm good, and I haven't been convicted of anything, so I'm good. Tina, your hand's up.
Well, I was just gonna say, this board won't be able to renew online.
No, they can't. And that's why we have the renewal, instead of just an inexpensive renewal, which is just looking, are you in good shape and you haven't gotten arrested? Great. We have to go through all of this documentation every single time, both for the initial authorization and in subsequent renewals. And that's why we had to put a fee on there, because that's paying for staff time to go through all this stuff. Okay, very unusual for us. In fact, I've never seen this before. So something different. Any questions?
I just have a comment and something this has been converted. Something that's been kind of in the back of my mind throughout this whole process.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to maybe be overly burdensome for some existing dental labs to comply. And I think they may either work outside these rules, or they'll have to close down. Just to comment, there's, you know, for us labs that are more established, this is going to be more paperwork, yeah, but you know, we can absolutely do this. But some labs won't be able to do this.
And why? Can you tell me why?
They don't have it could be a one-man lab that's been operating for 20 years out of their garage, and they have, you know, maybe 2 or 3 accounts, then that's their livelihood, but they don't have, you know, the resources. They don't have the time to do the 12 hours of, you know, continuing education. They don't have, you know, a way to document what their, you know, materials are and keep records and all of that kind of stuff. It's just, I see this kind of as a, it might be a problem for some of the smaller labs.
Okay, and when we get, that's important information, and when we do the fiscal impact, I would very much like you to articulate that to the fullest extent possible so that I can get that on the record. That's super important.
And that's just, you know, I could be wrong, but that it's just sort of been in the back of my mind throughout this. Maybe Christina and Carly can maybe agree or disagree with me on that. I would love to be wrong about that.
Yeah, I think that this does put quite a bit on a single, or even, you know, someone with one employee. This adds a lot to them.
Okay, and yeah, let's capture all of that when we get to the fiscal impact. I know we're running a little bit behind, but Josh, could you confirm we don't have any public on the call?
I do not believe we have any public. Okay,
because I allowed time at the end for public comment if there was anybody who had something to say and wanted to listen but didn't want to be or didn't qualify for the RAC. So we do have time. I know we're running a little bit behind, but we're okay for right now with the components we still have to do. But I would very much like to flesh that out to the fullest extent possible. And that's why you're here. We're here for your minds, we're here for your experience, so that we can report back. The legislature puts things into place, but it's up to the stakeholders to provide feedback on the consequences of these requirements, right? So we want to definitely capture that. Another really, again, when you renew, you have to pay your renewal fee and you have to pay the review fee, but that's to go over the paperwork and the renewal fee, okay? Again, something different. Now, another thing that was different in this bill, usually, how about until now, when a program or a new board was established, they would say, if you were doing a certain kind of work or providing a certain kind of service, you have to have a license through health licensing, okay? You don't have to have a license if perhaps you provide this service in an educational setting, or if, they'll give other exemptions. Say you don't have to be licensed. HLO doesn't have to be part of your life if you fall under one of these exemptions. What's really fascinating about this bill is even if you're exempted from having to have a license from us or an authorization, you still have to submit information to us. Your bill exempts dental laboratories if it's in a dental office, if it is owned and operated by and under the supervision of a practicing dentist, and it doesn't do work for an outside practice. Okay? If you meet the criteria, you don't need an authorization. However, it says shall annually file, must annually file. So even if you don't need an authorization, every year, anyone who qualifies under these exemptions has to provide us the address of the exempted dental laboratory, the name, license number, and contact information of the dentist that's described in sub 1. And the filing is good for 1 year and expires on the last day of the month, 1 year of the date of issuance. So even if you don't need an authorization, you still have to engage with us. And we do have disciplinary authority if somebody doesn't do what they have to do. And we have to keep track of this. Now it's super interesting because how do we keep track of something if you're not getting an authorization? So we came up with like a tracking number where every year we're going to have to take your information, scan it in, and engage with an exempted lab, even though they technically don't need an authorization. I have never seen this before, but here we are.
This is Christina. So if they're having to fill out the paperwork anyway, and they're a dentist or they're in a dental office as a lab, are they still going to be required to send a certificate of the 30 plus hours of work and still have to show that they are a dentist? Because that's kind of some gray area there if they're not needing this number, but they also should have to prove that they are a dentist or in a dental facility like that.
If they qualify, if this dental lab qualifies, it only qualifies if it's in a dental office and it's owned and operated by and under the supervision of a dentist and doesn't perform any outdoor work or any outside work, any work that comes from anywhere else. So on the form that they're going to have to submit to us, they have to tell us where they are, the name, dental license number, and contact information of the dentist. Okay, so they have to tell us where they are and who they are.
So you'll be able to track them, but they won't have to actually supply the makeup material of whatever the restoration is.
They are exempt from authorization requirements. Yeah.
And so this is any dentist that is currently using a chairside mill, I would think, if they're fabricating crowns. Like even if they don't have a full operating dental lab, because there's a lot of those. That's going to be a lot of registrations.
Yeah, and there are a lot of dental offices that have a small lab and a ceramist or a denture technician in the back. And they won't be, they'll be exempt too.
Yeah.
That
Well,
feels like a disservice to the dental labs that have certified dental technicians to say that anyone that works for a dentist could make a great product.
And
this
a disservice to the patients, because that's what this is all about, I'm assuming, is to protect the patient.
Folks, we need to have a little bit of order. Tina's had her hand up and you, going back and forth. Tina, go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say, somebody asked when the application comes in and the dentist number, we will look up the number of that dentist on the dentistry board to make sure that they are licensed. Just letting you know.
Right, and these exemptions, I mean, it's not unusual to have licensure exemptions, right? Because there are people who, maybe they're teaching a profession, but they don't actually see patients. You know, or maybe they work for, I mean, we have a board where if you work for corrections or Oregon Youth Authority, you don't have to be certified to provide a certain service. That's not unusual. What is unusual is that someone who meets this criteria still has to engage with us, which is odd. I've got to be honest. But and honestly, when we get, you know, to the fiscal impact or the racial equity or whatever, and you guys want to think that these exemptions could have unintended consequences, positive or negative, that would be a great time to share that. But yeah, I mean, we saw this and we thought we even had to ask our authorities. Remember, we talk about what our powers are, you know, our toolbox. Our toolbox is based on people who are under our authority. How do any of our tools work on someone who's exempt? And we had to do a deeper dive on that because this was really unusual for us. Any other comments, questions? So, because we have a program and not a board, what we have in Division 770 is a proposed disciplinary structure. Okay, when we have a board, if we have a board like with cosmetology, where a lot of the sanctions fall under certain things. You know, they're not displaying their license behind, you know, on the wall. They're not doing something. We will have what's called a proposed list of civil penalties, where if we get a complaint and we investigate and we are found to have broken a law or rule, we can just assess the civil penalty without dragging it to the board. When you have 50, 60, 70,000 licensees, these are the things that lead to efficiencies. If there's something unusual, we would take it to the board and say, well, where does this fall? We don't have a proposed list of penalties. Well, because we don't have a board, we have a program which allows HLO to issue the discipline. What we put here that we're going to go over are based on our experience and our technical expertise, where we think some of the issues will come and some proposed civil penalties for those issues. If we get something that falls outside this list, we could get a subject matter expert contracted in, and we could talk to them about how to apply discipline. But again, this is just a guess based on our experience, okay? So we have, based on your bill, we are given the authority to refuse to issue or renew, suspend or revoke, or otherwise condition or limit an authorization, or we can discipline, place on probation. Remember we talked about the things that we have the authority to do? We can't just say, okay, you broke a rule, you have to clean my director's truck for a week. We can't do that. But these are the things we are allowed to do. And for what? For any violation of ORS 679, 700 to 720, those are your codified laws. what your bill was turned into. If you violate any of those requirements or the rules we're talking about today, or a prohibited act, we have an unprofessional conduct statute, 676, 612. And that talks about general unprofessional conduct. So we have to be very specific that an authorization holder could be disciplined for anything falling under that umbrella. Okay? A dental laboratory may not provide false information or misrepresent information on an application or a form required by us. We have to be very specific, because if we aren't, somebody can say, well, you didn't say I couldn't. You know, I mean, that's the world of regulation. You don't give us any information or records we ask for. If we're doing an investigation and you ghost us, that could be a problem. You don't cooperate with an investigation, that's going to be a problem, or another regulatory agency. Or fail to comply with any final order. Okay, if the disciplinary process plays out, you're given a notice of intent that says, hey, we got a complaint, we looked into it, we found you violated these laws and rules. It goes through the contested case process. You can argue, you can go along with it. It can go in front of an administrative law judge. It can go all the way to the Oregon Supreme Court. We've had some of them go that far. We've never lost, but that is expensive. And if you are given a final order that says you have to follow these conditions and you don't, that's going to be another problem. Did I hear a thought bubble come up on somebody? Okay, so if any of those things occur, here are your proposed civil penalties. Okay, this is the presumptive civil penalty schedule for violations of statutes and rules. Okay, again, this is just boilerplate language. If you violate anything that we just talked about, this is what can happen. Not limited to operating a non-exempt dental lab. That means a dental lab that needs to get an authorization without one. It's a violation. Okay? If you, and we break this into categories for a reason. If you're operating one and you've never gotten an authorization, you've been flying in the wind the whole time. First time we catch you, it's $2,500 civil penalty. Second time, it's $5,000. And the third time, it says we may do anything, right? We may revoke. If you do it a third time, we have other things we can do, okay? Same thing, if you're operating a dental lab with an inactive, like you got one once and maybe it lapsed. Okay, so you had an intention to follow the rules and then maybe something happened, okay? You'll notice the penalty, the first one is a little smaller because HLO regulatory folks say there is a difference in intent between somebody who tried to comply and maybe made a mistake versus somebody who never even tried to comply. Make sense? Again, the first time we catch you, it's $1,000. Second time, $2,500. Third time, $5,000. And they are doing a fourth offense, which is we can do anything, revoke. Okay. Oregon is not a punitive state. If you've lived other places, you know this. Oregon tries to help educate. This is not a hunting and scouting kind of operation. You know, we try to educate, we try to get people in compliance and help them. But if they're going to fly in the face of, things ramp up accordingly. Okay? If you are operating with an authorization that is suspended or revoked, you have entered the regulatory machine, you have been found lacking, and you continue to, the first offense is $5,000 and we're only going to go a second, we might go on beyond that. Okay? Failing to meet a dental lab requirement listed under, and that is the authorization requirements. Okay, you're not maintaining somebody on site that has to be a certain kind of employee. They're not working the required number of hours. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. You'll see the first, second, and third offense, the fourth offense again, gloves come off. Okay? Now, this is all we have. These were the things that we felt in our speculation world that we might have to go after a lab for? Is there something else that could happen in your world that we've not captured here that you feel we should? Carly, Christine, Susan?
I'm trying to think of something. Is there, are there no penalties for failing to just register if, if that's your only requirement is registration and not authorization?
Oh, you mean, an exempted
Yeah.
lab? That is something that we have been talking about internally. They are required, like an exempted lab is required to engage with us. My director is indicating that there might still be some questions about what we can do to them, or
you might have to just strike the non.
oh, operating a non-exempt, no.
Yeah, because,
No, this
well,
is,
there's that, and
yeah.
then there's, drop something in for failing to.
Annually. Okay. So my director has indicated operating a non-exempt, so that's a laboratory that requires an authorization. So why don't we do a 3 that says failing to annually submit? File. As an exempted laboratory. Okay. So what do you think the civil penalties should be, folks?
I mean, they're putting stuff in patients' mouths. I think it should just be as severe as the ones that we're going to have to operate under.
I completely agree.
Okay.
If not more, just to incentivize people to actually get with the program.
Okay, I don't know if we can, now we can de-incentivize things, but I don't know, would we want to stick with the 1,000, 2,500, 5,000, or do we want to use the 2,500, 5,000 third offense? Go that way. Because we can start at the 1,000, 2,500, 5,000, or we can do the 2,500, 5,000, and the third one, it could be the whammy. We don't know.
I like the 2,500 and keep going from there.
Yeah, this is Carly. If we're taking the patient into consideration, I would think that that would be the best.
We're here for public safety. That's what HLO's mission is. It's not about protectionism. It's not about territory. It's not about making sure people get paid. It's about public protection. So with that in mind, if we say failing to annually file as an exempted laboratory, first time we catch you, it's 2,500, then it's 5,000, and the third one, we take the gloves off. Okay? Because the thing is, if someone's a dentist, we have great relationships with other boards, and it's not unusual if we have a practitioner that's dual licensed, they have a problem with, we have a problem with them, we'll let we have one certification for sexual offense treatment providers. They have to have another mental health license in order to get that. If we had a disciplinary issue with one of those, you better believe we're going to let the Board of Licensed Professional Counselors know. Better believe it. So if this is something where we had to then turn around and reach out to the Board of Dentistry, we certainly would. Because it's about compliance. It's about helping people be compliant. But if they willfully ignore that, well, bad things are going to happen. Okay, so does that look good, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Also,
Yes.
another thing that I'm thinking are the dentists that are sending scans out of the state and having something milled, like to some of the bigger mass, production type labs. They're going to have to be licensed to do work in Oregon, correct?
Well, the way the bill is written, anyone who operates physically in Oregon or who performs work orders who fulfills work orders that originate in Oregon.
Okay, so then yes.
Let me, yeah, dental laboratory. Let's go back to our definitions. That's what saves us. You guys are testing me, right? A dental laboratory means a facility where they make, provide, alter dental prosthetics and other artificial materials. And I think you have to operate in Oregon, physically located in Oregon, or a lab that's anywhere. Work product based on a work order from a dentist licensed in Oregon.
Okay.
Lab that's doing work for Oregon dentists, and they are physically located in Iowa, they have to have a license.
Okay, yeah, because we do work, like I have to go through a bunch of licensing stuff to do work in Texas. And yeah, so that's going to be a significant thing as well.
Oh, for sure. I mean, but we have, what's really interesting, our temporary staffing agency program, there are a few TSAs, as we call them, located in Oregon. The vast majority are in other states, and they send workers to Oregon. So getting that program was super colorful because how do we know where they are? Some of them don't even have websites. There's somebody with 3 friends that are RNs and a phone, right? So when you're, and that was another thing when we were talking about pricing the program. How hard is it going to be to pursue a company out of state, right? When you start entering other states, I mean, they're like the nation of another state, right? That would be significantly more difficult than pursuing somebody within the state boundaries. Okay, so that's when we start pricing out programs and stuff, we have to consider what's an investigator going to have to do to go after a lab that violated something and they're located in New Hampshire. It just gets more complicated. So are we okay with this? Do we need to go, would you like to, with everything that we've internalized, would you like to do a quick scan through the definitions to see if we need to add one or make any adjustments?
This is Van Kinsberg, and I have one more
Please.
thing, and it's been a lot of information, so forgive me if it's somewhere in there. But what does somebody who's going to start a lab do when they don't have the 12 months of running the business and they're just starting? Are they able to get authorized?
If they are either a practicing dentist and they work in the lab 30 hours a week, or they employ somebody 30 hours a week, either they or their employee works 30 hours a week and meets one of those 2 pathways. They're either certified through the organization or they have 12 hours of that very specific CE that was obtained in the year prior to them applying. So in theory, you're either a dentist and you're working 30 hours a week and you're supervising the lab, or you have a responsible person, either it's your lab or you hire somebody who's the responsible person. So as long as you can meet those criteria, I would think that there's a pathway available to you. It would depend on the employee that you hire, how many hours you could pay them.
So what if it's just me? I'm not a dentist. I'm a certified dental technician, and I want to start a business. I want to start my own lab that has nothing to do with a dentist. Is there something in there?
So let's say you have to, so you are not a dentist.
And I'm not going to hire anybody. I'm just
you would be the responsible person. Okay, so you would have to apply, give us the address of the dental lab, list your own name because you're the responsible person, and you're going to be supervising your little lab. You have that responsible person, that person, would have to attest that you meet the infectious disease control requirements of OSHA and the CDC. you would have to attest that you will provide those material content things that we talked about, disclosures, and that if you go to a third party, that you will get the material disclosure from that third party. And then you need to show that you're the applicant, you're the responsible person, that you're going to work at least 30 hours a week in your little laboratory, and that you have completed the 12 hours of CE that was required by the NBCD LT, or you're certified with them, and that you're going to work 30 hours a week. So as long as you promise to do the content disclosures that we went over, and that you have you're either certified with this organization or you've gotten the 12 hours in a year prior to applying, you have that CE that's accepted by the organization, and that you're going to work 30 hours a week in your little lab.
And, you know, we were talking about needing documentation. So I wouldn't have documentation that I have worked 30 hours per week or I'm going to. I could say I'm going to. Is the attestation enough in this case?
Well, you know, those are the things that we like to put under the umbrella of case by case.
Okay.
You know, if someone's going to be solamente them, and, you know, I would think that if you're going to work in a lab and it's your lab and you're taking work orders from other dentists and everything, chances are in your business, you're going to be working 30 hours a week. If you don't want to work 30 hours a week, this may not work for you because statutorily, that's the cutoff, right?
Yeah.
But if it's your business, you know, you would have to say, yeah, I'm planning on working in my business for at least 30 hours a week, and I can work in my lab because I have this training or this certification. But if it gets any weirder than that, and this falls under the umbrella of case by case, because just when we think we've got it all figured out, someone's going to come up with something we cannot even imagine. Because as you can see, we're speculating. But yeah, there is a pathway for somebody who wants to start up their little lab. Now, if they want to start up their little lab and they're a dentist and they don't do work for anybody else, they would fall under the exemption and they would still have to send us information. Make sense?
This is Christina. I looked back at the definitions. There's nothing in the definitions that specifies exempt. Is that something that we overlooked, or is that implied when you continue reading on?
Well, the reason we have definitions, great questions, by the way, gold stars across the board for you folks. You're fantastic. When we get into definitions, it's because there's a phrase there that has a very specific meaning to us and this program, okay? Exempted dental lab is only used in that one area where we explain what it is and we say what you have to do. Later on, if people say, well, what's an exempt lab? We can point to a whole section that talks about that. Right? If a word or a phrase is used over and over and over and over again, and we need to have a specific lens on with that word, we put it in definitions. If it's only used once, we have some boards where an organization is only used once. We'll just spell it out because it's not like something we have to refer to several times throughout the document, right? Would it make more sense to include? And again, I'm telling you what my opinion is, but I'm not the arbiter of all things. Do you think that somebody going through this document, if they don't know right off the bat what an exempted lab is, they might get confused or do the wrong thing? Is there a chance for misinterpretation?
It seems like it could be left up to interpretation of whether or not a dentist with a lab is exempt or authorized to actually do business as a lab, because we're talking about authorization only in regards to a dental lab without a dentist. but it seems a little bit unclear that a dentist in theory is actually authorized to continue doing their work if they fill out their paperwork and submit it to you.
Oh, okay, I think you just went right over my head. Can you rephrase that for me, please?
Sure. So we've got two options. We either have the dental lab that fills out the paperwork, checks all the boxes, and they become authorized and are given a number. Or we have a dentist that is operating their own lab. They are being issued a separate number. We don't know what that is, but they are exempt and they're also kind of authorized to do business as a dental lab only if they submit the paperwork. So it kind of seems unclear that
Okay,
this.
let me clarify. A dental laboratory can be authorized if they have that responsible person, I'm going to refer you down here, or a dentist supervising the lab.
So when we are talking about an exempt dentist, we
Yes.
are also saying that they are authorized, are we not? As long as their paperwork is filled in?
Yeah, a dentist can go both ways. A dentist can supervise a lab that does work that originates from outside. Okay? A dentist can supervise a lab that gets an authorization or the responsible person. Right? So those, you can have two different kinds of supervisors on an authorized lab. If there is a scenario in which a licensed Oregon dentist has a little lab in their practice and they do not do work that originates from outside their office, it is a closed system, they can be exempt. Right? But a big lab that does work from outside can have one of two kinds of supervisors, a licensed dentist or the quote responsible party. Did I clear that up? Dentists can go both ways depending on the lab in which, is the lab in their practice, their dental practice that is licensed by the dental board? Or are they the supervisor in a bigger lab? Does that help, or did I make it worse?
I was tracking with the requirements. It just seems like how would a dentist read this and say, or not read this and say, hey, I actually need to go through the steps to submit for some sort of number to have my in-house lab. I mean, a lot of this language is around just the actual dental lab, like where we're reporting from. How do you make sure that the dentists themselves are actually feeling like this is something that they have to go through all of the paperwork on? Because it definitely feels focused the other direction.
So what you're saying is, how will the dentist know that they have to either file an exemption? Okay, because I was living in the definitions, and so I was like, where do we go just then? So what you're asking, if I can actively read, I see your hand up, Tina. How will the dentists who have labs in their offices know to send us their annual filing? Is that the question?
Kind of. Yeah. I mean, I guess, is it clear to them that they have to? But
Well, Tina, thoughts?
Yes. Well, Anne could do a FAQ on this. And would it be beneficial for you guys to put the definition of exemption in the definitions?
I
Tina.
I feel like that would help.
Tina, can you repeat it? You cut out on our end.
put exemptions in the definition. And then once the rules are in place, and could create a FAQ for the public.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about the public though, we're talking about dentists.
FAQ for the dentist or for the labs.
I'll consider that. It would be a little simpler. I'll have to game it out, but there's nothing wrong with, first of all, the dental board knows about this. And there's nothing wrong with, I can just communicate with the dental board. Because if you're talking about dentists, licensed dentists, it would be super simple, because an FAQ, this is the thing, an FAQ is for people who come to us looking for information, right? Just off the cuff, the quickest way to do it would be to reach out to the dental board and have them send something out to their licensees saying, hey, here's a bill. If this is your requirement, this is what you have to do. So I can look at an exempted laboratory definition.
This is Carly, is there any responsibility placed on the dentist to make sure that they are doing business with a licensed dental lab?
That would be a mechanism that would be the dental board.
Okay.
That's outside our authority. We have no authority over licensed dentists.
Okay.
Other questions?
I thought I saw Brennan had his hand up. Michael Brennan. Did you have
Michael
your hand up?
Brennan? Question. He is our licensing specialist who will be tasked with this program.
Oh, I was just thinking distinction between a dentist in a dental lab versus somebody with an exemption is they're not fulfilling work orders for other dentists. Would that be correct?
Yes.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Unless there are multiple dentists within the practice. So maybe if they're not fulfilling orders outside of the practice.
Yes.
This is Christina. That's probably a valid thing to think about because there are a lot of dental practices with multiple doctors and probably one lab. And how would we know whether or not they were doing work for their buddy down the street?
Well, and in the past with our boards, number one, where we work on complaints, and we have some boards that are just awesome at ratting each other out. I'm just going to be straight with you. And if they hear about something and they're like, oh, okay, you're doing work. You know, the thing is, dentists are highly credentialed professionals. It would surprise me if there were cowboy dentists out there that are working out of the garages and stuff, right? You can only have a dental practice if you're licensed in the dental board. It's an established board, highly credentialed. You know, then it comes down to, okay, you have a bad actor, we get a complaint, but we don't know until this gets on the road and we actually see what kind of complaints we get. Okay. So if we could, because we are running a little bit behind, this would be the section where we would talk about the statement of fiscal need, the fiscal impact. So please bring up all of your thoughts about how these rules will impact small lab owners, the documentation requirements. Give me everything and let me try to keep up.
Okay, well, I'll just off the top of my head, this is Carly. For us being a larger lab that's already certified with other things, this isn't going to be as difficult for us as it is going to be for even small labs of 4 to 5 people, let alone the single business owner. For us, I already have a meeting scheduled with my team to talk about the fiscal impact that this is going to have on us. It'll be more like the initial upfront. of getting all of our processes in alignment. I think past that, it'll just be just the ongoing registration.
What will some of the processes that will have to change? Will you have templates, letterhead, things that have to change?
Yes, some of our pre-printed materials will have to be reprinted. We'll have to make adjustments to the way our invoices print. Website changes and that type of thing are pretty easy. Email addresses are easy. It'll mostly, I would think the impact will mostly be in the printed materials that we already have. And then the time and labor it's going to be to update all of these things.
Do we have, if I may, because I'm thinking about things very specific to the Secretary of State. Do you have any idea how many small labs are out there that might get the kick in the butt that you were talking about, with the documentation requirements? Do you have any idea about how many there might be? Because they actually say, like, how many small businesses could be impacted and why? Like additional documentation costs, additional materials, additional labor. Any number? Do you have any idea how many of these little labs out there that you said earlier could be driven out of business by this?
A lot of those metrics could probably be found on the OADL. If you reach out to Carrie, she knows how many labs are registered here in Oregon.
Yeah, I'm talking about the little ones that could be, I mean, is there any way of knowing? And this is, again, they ask us to get this from the RAC. Any idea of how many of these small businesses that you said might be forced to close because of this?
No idea.
No, that's okay, but I mean, 50, 60, who knows?
I would say more than that, but that's just my perception. It's not. But again, I think the Oregon Dental Lab Association may have those metrics, even of ones that are not registered. They may polls are taken, and they may have that information. Just to give us a ballpark.
Okay. But we had templates, letterhead, pre-printed materials have to be reordered. Earlier, you said that these extensive materials requirements could be a problem. Can you flesh that out in terms of fiscal impact?
Yeah, this is Van Kinsberg, and I'm already kind of in my mind down the road a little bit on how we're going to handle that, and I'm thinking that it can't be with the hundreds of cases that we have going out every day. It can't be the people who are billing and packing, grabbing a sheet and putting it in the case, because what if they forget, it'll either have to be printed on the invoice automatically based on the products that are billed, or a separate piece of paper that is printed automatically based on the products that are billed. That then goes right along with the invoice. And
that would be an extra step that you would have to work into your process.
Yeah, the extra step, or the cost is going to be upfront in getting that implemented and automated and building each list of materials and connecting them with all the products that they belong to. It's going to be a big lift.
And when you say a big lift, can you give me as specific as you can? Is it going to take more staff hours? Is it going to be adding processes? Are you going to need more printers, more people, more time, more?
Yes, it's going to take more staff hours, mostly our IT department, along with our managers, and probably enlisting some of the vendors to get the, you know, materials, information. But I would say to be, um, fair to the labs who also have to get cases out every day. And, you know, we can't hire somebody to do this for us. This is probably gonna take, you know, 2 to 3 months, at least on our part, to get this in a streamlined fashion implemented.
This is Carly. I also think there needs to be a lag time between when we're actually issued our number and when we are required to have it out, because if we have to have things reprinted with that number on it, we're going to need some time.
That's an interesting point, because the bill does not have any sort of roll-in. Now, I don't know if, and this is kind of a side conversation, maybe we can get this done and then we can talk about that. Let's get these pieces done and then we can talk about the waiver that just went out, okay? So you said lag time for when you're issued the number, when you have to have it on your invoices or have it on your materials?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just a grace period.
Yeah, that the bill does not give us a grace period for that. That one, Bob. So, yeah, there's nothing mentioned in the bill. They just say an authorized lab has to include this number on, and that's a straight thing. Is there any more? And we can revisit that. Do we have any more fiscal impact? Is there going to be any training or additional staff? Or I mean, you really kind of ripple this out.
This is Carly. For any lab that currently doesn't have a CDT or someone who is getting CE, that's going to be a cost to them, and that is going to affect mainly the smaller labs.
Or somebody who's getting the CE.
Yeah.
Now, would they have to either hire somebody or they'd go out of business, right?
Correct. Or they do the CE themselves.
Okay, hire someone or do it themselves.
This is Christina. This is kind of a question for Carly. Do you think that because this number would have to be on marketing material and letterheads and all of that, that would also apply to digital RXs?
Like the incoming digital RXs?
Yeah, because that's a formal correspondence. So if we were working like with Reshape or Itero and we were responding via those platforms, do you think we're exempt from that?
I don't think it would be applicable if we're responding to the digital company and the incoming prescription from the doctor through Itero. That's on them. We wouldn't have to put our number on that.
Okay.
And then if we're emailing them about it, it would just be in our email signature.
Okay.
Been a really robust conversation. And if you think of something, I've got another document going here. So if you think of something, we can go back to it. But if you're comfortable, and think about these rules, and it may be positive, it may be negative, it may be nothing, but the racial impact. Will these rules have a positive or negative, or could they impact underserved communities, communities of color? Could this have a positive impact on oral health? Does this have any kind of impact on communities of color and help, close the racial gap in Oregon?
This is Christina. I feel like it could if you're in an area in which it's going to be difficult to pay for the continued education, and that also goes hand in hand with the small businesses that need to hire an employee and maybe they themselves don't have the certification. And so they're seeking an employee that already has it so that they can comply. That is definitely going to narrow down the hiring pool. And those classes and that certification, it's not something that is easily done. It is very time consuming and it isn't inexpensive. So I do feel like it will narrow down the pool of dental technicians that are hired.
Okay, so let me catch up. The CEs that you're talking about that you have to have in order to work in a lab, and that labs are required to have, these classes are not easily done and they're not inexpensive. So to have the requirements, this could, in like a lower income or a lesser served community, this could narrow down the employee possibilities. And make like a barrier to entry for employees.
Yeah, especially for a small lab that really needed someone on their team that had that certification. For a larger lab, it seems like if you only have to have one person for a lab of 30, then maybe not as big of a deal.
Sure. No, that's important. Would this have any kind of impact? I mean, the whole point of it was patient benefit, right? Public safety. Would these rules have any like quality impact or anything like that in lesser served communities? I mean, do you know if communities are now getting poor quality work or they're having more problems with their oral health because maybe labs are not required to do these things? I mean, can you see any effect in that area?
I don't see it as a negative to
No.
have certification.
Okay, now I was thinking, would there be like a positive impact?
I
Well,
do. I mean, just in our lab setting here, people who continue to get continued education or our CDTs, they offer a higher level experience on function, on long-term results of creating a proper restoration. So I don't think that it's a downfall to require someone on your team to have continued education.
no, it can, impact can be positive as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's great. I think that it will be a positive impact.
Okay.
And I feel like when we start talking about dentists as well, I mean, their role is very different than the dental technician's role. What we look at for strength, for longevity, our requirements oftentimes are not met by the dentist to begin with. So we have to be creative on creating a project or a restoration that will stand a warranty time period. So I do feel like hopefully the end result patient will have a restoration that lasts longer and will be dealing with a technician that knows what is in the material that they're working with. Also, hopefully, it brings to light labs that are utilizing materials that maybe are higher in radiation and, take the time to get a higher end product so that the patients don't suffer poor consequences in the future.
Well, and if a patient gets a really good restoration the first time, does that save them time, trouble, pain, and everything down the road of having to maybe get it again or have it redone? Or, I mean, I would think that if you get
It definitely can. It definitely can.
a good service on the front could save time, trouble, money on the back, right?
Yes.
Okay. These are all good things. Okay. So longer lasting restorations and better outcomes. And oral health is linked to everything, right? Cardiac health, everything. Health outcomes. Okay. So, do we have anything else to add in this area? Because if we don't, I know you guys had some questions about like the grace period between when you get your number and when you have to have it on your materials. Was that, if we're okay with this space and we still have 10 minutes, Did you guys have additional questions? We have the director here. I don't have anything on the bill that says, okay, you get your number on Tuesday and you don't have to have it on your materials until the following Monday. Like we don't have any time period like that, but we just sent out a communication because the rules aren't going into effect when the bill takes effect, which is July 1. HLO is offering a waiver for 3 months, I think, until the end of September, then you can continue to operate in Oregon without an authorization until October 1st. Now, if you go out and do something egregious, we could still go after unprofessional conduct or something like that if you hurt somebody. But you can continue to operate in Oregon or perform work orders that originate in Oregon without an authorization until the end of September. And
So
we
will
just
you, I'm sorry, will you be issuing numbers as of July 1st?
No, the rules have to go through the rulemaking process. This is just the Rules Advisory Committee where we were just test driving them.
Gotcha.
I have to file them with the Secretary of State. They're going to go out for public comment for 28 days. That's when they're disseminated to all the interested parties, and people let us know, we like this, we don't like that, this would be better. And we take all of that feedback. We have to consider it. Because remember, we're doing things that are the force of law. We have to consider all of that, and then we have to file permanent. What is making our effective date, we're going to aim for September 1st to have our rules in place. When the rules go into place, we can begin taking applications, because we can't take a check from somebody on a program that's not effective yet. And one of the steps, and I know this is part of the bureaucratic thing that you guys don't need to deal with, but part of getting a new program underway is having the Department of Administrative Services, you guys might have heard of DAS before, they have to approve our fiscal piece. And they're running a little bit behind, right? So when you're creating something where there was nothing, there's a lot of stuff that has to spin up and gain momentum in order to get it going. So right now we're aiming for effective rules on September 1st. And if you're on our interested party list, you will get email blasts when forms are available, when the rules go out for public comment. And just because you're on the rack doesn't mean that you can't then have an idea and give us something in public comment. We welcome that. We'll have a hearing at the end, because some folks just want to talk to me. They don't want to send an email, or they want to do both. That's okay. We have one scheduled for August 28th. You can call me up and talk to me. That's fine. And then when all of this stuff gets finished, we'll begin taking applications and licenses. Authorizations will start going out. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
I know there's just a lot of stuff that has to come together. There's a tech piece. We have to get our database altered. We have to make sure that staff is trained up on this new program. So there's just a lot of stuff that has to take place. And because of that and the delay with gas, that's when Bob said we need to issue an enforcement waiver. And we've done this before where we say, okay, I know according to the bill, you have to have this authorization on this certain date. Our temporary staffing agency was one but the way the bill was written, we could not take a check for an authorization until the day the program went into effect because of the way the bill was written. And it's using the reasonable person standard. You can't expect an organization to have an authorization when the applications have not been made available until the day they're due, right? And that was just the way it was written. So what we did was we said, okay, you can continue to send staff to Oregon for 90 days without an authorization. However, if you send staff into a hospital and they're not appropriately trained and someone gets hurt, oh, we're still going to come after you, right? But because it's just, again, the reasonable person, you can't be expected to have something that hasn't been made available. That's just reasonable. So yeah, so we're gonna, for 3 months, I think it's like 92 days exactly. We're gonna waive the requirement for operating an organ without an authorization. However, something really bad happens, we're still going to regulate that. And Susan.
Yeah, so how are you going to get the word out to all of the laboratories and dentists with laboratories? How are you going to get that word out? First question. And second question, how are you going to, I know we've got the disciplinary actions, but how are you going to audit or enforce this? Because, you know, all three of us on this call from labs are going to do this. We're going to, you know, do the right thing, but there will be labs out there that will say, screw it, I'm not doing that. That's dumb. And we're putting in the effort, the money, the time to be above board, and yet our competition may not be. What?
Go ahead.
I guess that's it.
That was it? Okay, well, the first one I will address, Bob with his long history of compliance will address the second one. But the first one, when we start a new program, and I've done a bunch of them, the first thing we do is we start an interested party list. We work very closely with the Oregon Dental Lab Association. They have been an amazing partner in this. They were the driver behind the legislation, and I've talked to Kara on multiple occasions, and she provided us with the members list. She also communicated via their newsletter and things, letting dental labs, and she said she even had contact information for labs that were not members of the association, right? And has been continually communicating that this was coming, okay? We, through our interested party list, have been sending out emails, right? So we have communicated through the Oregon Dental Lab Association. They have done the best they could to use their channels. Carrie's been great to let people know this was coming. And if you want to be part of the process or get involved, get on our interested party list. We're the government. We can't just blast everybody. You have to let us know that you want to be blasted. And so, and I've also had a lot of folks just calling up saying, okay, I know this is coming. How do I get involved? Once it gets going, this is something too that we can use the Oregon Dental Board to say, listen, communicate, there's an exemption here, but there's also an expectation and an obligation. And this is what it is. And then it's up to them to communicate. Carly?
What about the labs operating outside of Oregon but are working on work orders that originate in Oregon?
That's another one that's kind of, we had to use with the temporary staffing agency, which was, we hope that through the Oregon Dental Lab Association that they will get communications. Because we don't know what we don't know. It's like, reaching in the dark. We hope through the grapevine that they will realize that this is happening. The Oregon Dental Lab was trying to get this authorization requirement through for about 3 years. Three legislative sessions. And so there was a lot of ripple effect, a lot of awareness that came from that, and then when it finally went through. But, sometimes it's word of mouth. And just like through word of mouth, here's Bob to talk about how we get complaints.
So this is Bob again, and thank you everybody for your questions. So the question was, what about the people that just say, heck, that I'm not going to do it, it seems too complicated. And we've paid our dues, we've jumped through the hoops, we've got ours. Well, we would depend, let me rephrase that. We wouldn't necessarily depend on you to tell on these folks, but it's okay for you to tell on folks. So if you've done all this and you've paid the money and people are out there not doing it, you're within your right to file a complaint with us. And anonymously if you wish, but you just have to give us enough information. Additionally, we can, if we understand that there's a place out there that is providing this service and they don't have a registration, we can initiate complaints on our own. But we just have to know who, what, when, where, and why to start looking.
Yeah, the more information we get, the better. We have a complaint form on our website you can fill out. I see your hand up, Christine, and honestly, I have had in various programs, people call me up and say, I'm Joe Schmo, I work at this street and I'm not gonna get this license. And I'm like, well, you know what? And I'm gonna initiate a complaint based on what you just told me. Christina?
I've got a question about if we're going to be sending renewals every year and you have to work through them differently than you're used to because they're not an online, you have to submit all this documentation.
Yep.
Are you anticipating that these numbers that we're going to be issued, this authorization number, that it's going to be the same number every year that we renew?
That's the question we had in-house. We were like, well, if they're renewing, can they keep the same number? And from what I understand and what I've heard about your marketing materials and your advertising materials and your templates and all your official correspondence, it would make a lot of sense, try like crazy to keep that number the same, because if we had to change it, you know, if for whatever reason it changed every year, you're going to have an enormous impact of having to update your materials. So
Yes.
what we're hearing you say is that it would make the best sense, and it would make sense for our database too, right? For the same Joe's Lab, not to end up over 6 years to have 6 different numbers. Carly?
I'm so sorry, but I have another Zoom meeting starting.
That's okay.
So I have to go.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for those of you still left, this is Bob. I did receive, I sent an email out this morning to our database guy, and he's got questions. So we're on it. We'll hopefully have some good answers for all of us, so we don't have to get different numbers every year. We're shooting for not having to do that.
It would not be optimal to have to do that. I mean, even though we have all of this paperwork that we have to do to confirm the types of employees and the hours that they're working, we will do our level best to not have to do a new number, because that's going to be hard on everybody, right on down, from Bob on down. So we hear you and we appreciate it. We'll do everything we can do to keep that the same. Like I said, we can't do online because there's no way you can just attest when we have to confirm all of these employment pieces, right? So I think we have everything we need. If you have additional questions, you have access to me. I pick up my phone and I'm happy to help. And really appreciate your participation in getting this thing going.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Gold Star, we're incredibly grateful.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.